Good evening, members. Good evening, officers. Welcome to our planning committee this evening on the 22nd of October. Yes, we are have the privilege of being the first committee to view the new screens, which I hope will be, hopefully we'll find it easier to read the screens much better, I think, than the old ones. So I'll move on to the agenda. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I've had 3 apologies this evening: Councillor Beavis, Councillor Hooks and Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Ritchie is being substituted by Councillor Prime and Councillor Hooks by Councillor Wright, and we don't have a substitute for Councillor Beavis. Item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest related items on the agenda? Councillor Finken.
Thank you. I declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 5B as a member of House of Town Council, who are the applicants, and I will leave.
Thank you, Councillor Finken. Councillor Monday.
The same reasons for Councillor Finken, member of House of Town Council, on that application. As we own the land, just for seamlessness, I'll also leave.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? No, that's it. Item 3 on the agenda, minutes of the previous meeting. I have before me the minutes of the 1st of October. We do not have the minutes of the previous meeting, the 10th of September yet. They're not quite ready. But is it your wish? Would anybody like to move that I should sign these minutes as a correct record? Thank you, Councillor Abbott. A seconder, Councillor Monday. Thank you. And all those in favour? Thank you, members. Next item is item 4 on the agenda, which is public question time. We don't have any registered speakers on this item. So I now move to item 5, which is the planning applications. Members, we have 2 applications to consider this evening. The first one is application number 23/02819 full, which is Cardinal Works, which is the rear of 46 Bradford Street in Braintree. And we do have a speaker this evening who is the agent, Mr. Baker. So if you'd like to come to the table, Mr. Baker, turn the microphone, and you've got 3 minutes to make your statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. I'm here today to speak in support of the application for the redevelopment Cardinal Works on Bradford Street. This application seeks permission for the conversion of 2 existing buildings into 12 high-quality residential units. First, I'd like to highlight that this scheme directly addresses the concerns raised in the previous application, which was refused. We've carefully revised the design to present a proposal that fully complies with local and national planning policies, particularly in terms of space standards, parking provision and amenity space. One of the key strengths of this proposal is that it effectively tackles the inherent challenges of tight urban spaces. Naturally, sites like this come with constraints, particularly in terms of design and amenity. However, good design can overcome these challenges, and this scheme is a prime example of how clever design solutions can enhance both the living conditions for future residents and the surrounding urban environment. Through thoughtful placement of high-level obscured glazing, we have ensured that issues around the overlooking and privacy are mitigated, all while preserving the industrial character of the buildings, which contributes positively to the conservation area. The proposal is acceptable in principle, and it involves the redevelopment of a brownfield site within Braintree's urban area. It will make a positive contribution to local housing supply in a sustainable location with excellent access to public transport and local services. This aligns fully with both local and national policies, supporting the Council's aim to use land efficiently and responsibly. In terms of parking, this proposal provides 14 spaces, including visitor spaces, which meets policy requirements. The transport statement with the application indicates that the development will actually reduce vehicular movements compared to the previous office use, helping to ease pressure on the local road network. This scheme also delivers outdoor amenity space, exceeding the minimum standards outlined in the Essex Design Guide, which is especially notable given the urban nature of the site. We've also adjusted the internal layouts to improve natural light and outlook for residents, ensuring a high standard of living. And finally, we'd like to address drainage. The SUD strategy proposed is robust and entirely appropriate for the site. It addresses the critical drainage area effectively, ensuring that surface water management is handled responsibly and sustainably, mitigating any potential flood risk both on-site and for the surrounding area. In conclusion, this development not only contributes to the housing supply in Braintree, but does so in a way that respects the character of the conservation area. It enhances the urban fabric and delivers sustainable solutions. I respectfully urge you to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Baker. Now move on to the officer's presentation on this application, which is going to be given by Janine.
Thank you. This application seeks the partial demolition and change of use of the offices to residential use, consisting of 12 residential units with associated car parking, amenity space, covered cycle storage and refuse. The site is located within the defined boundary of Braintree. The existing buildings are unlisted but within the boundary of the Braintree-Bradford Street Conservation Area. The site is to the rear of Bradford Street and within the setting of several Grade 2 listed buildings that front onto Bradford Street, including number 46, Bradford Street and Stanford House, which are located the most closest to this site. The existing site plan shows the position of the existing buildings, which are 2 stories in height, and the relationship to the adjacent properties. The intention is to partially demolish the link between existing buildings 1 and 2, which is where you can see the glazed foyer on the west side. The 2 buildings that are joined together, they would become separated. And it would also remove the modern glazed extension, which I'll show later on the photographs. In terms of the ground floor, the overall layout has resulted in dwellings fronting the road and hard standing areas with limited setback and not enough tree planting or landscaping, failing to create an appropriate high quality sense of place. Furthermore, the communal amenity areas shown on this drawing would be overlooked by the future occupants of the flats. For example, the northern areas of the amenity areas would be directly overlooked by habitable rooms serving them flats, which all benefit from predominantly north-facing windows. There's also concern in respect of limited outlook for the living areas, serving Unit 1 and Unit 2 in Building 1, which is the building to the south on southwest. The ground floor of Building 3, which is to the east of the layout plan, comprises of, for example, Units 9 and 11, which front parking areas with little defensible space to mitigate against bedrooms or open plan living rooms for future occupants. And windows again to the north of Unit 9 are similar to that of Building 2, whereby there would be overlooking of the communal amenity space. Also, there is concern that there is insufficient separation distances between the buildings. For example, Building 3 on the east and Building 2 on the west. In terms of the first floor plan, again, obviously this just highlights the limited separation distances between the buildings and limited outlook for a number of the properties proposed. Within Building 1, Units 5, which faces to the south, would overlook a wall with limited outlook, and the open plan living area, due to the proximity of the buildings, would overlook the road. Unit 6 would have majority of windows facing north, and then there's issues again about the amenity space arrangement and the parking spaces to the east, resulting in further privacy concerns for future occupiers. The first floor level of Building 3, which again, just to point out, is to the east of the plan, would include high-level roof lights to the east and to the north and south first floor windows with a louver designed to protect amenities of adjacent occupiers. However, this does not overcome the daylight and outlook issues as raised in a previously refused application on this site. The next plan is just highlighting the roof plan with respect to the roof light positions and the existing dormers. In terms of the elevations, the next few slides will show the various elevations of the buildings. This slide shows the southern elevation of building 1 and 3 to the top of this plan, and the flank elevation of building 1 and rear elevation of building 2 to the bottom of the drawing. The main elevational changes relate to the fenestration, including horizontal windows proposed to all 3 buildings and high-level roof windows on the east-facing roof pitch of building 3. The historic building consultant has reviewed the proposed window changes and considers the window form shown in the attic and elevations would be incongruous with the character and appearance of the conservation area. In addition, the horizontal windows that are proposed are also out of keeping with the character and appearance of the conservation area. In relation to this slide, this shows the eastern elevation of building 1 and building 2 to the top, and to the bottom of the drawing is the rear elevation of building 3. As you can see, the link structure between the buildings 1 and 2 at the top will be demolished, but this was a later addition to the building, and this is not objected to in design terms. You can see from the drawings it would provide an extensive use of louvered screens over a number of windows, particularly in buildings 1 and 2 with vertical panels. The introduction of shutters and louvered screens to a modest degree could be deemed acceptable, but however this proposal as shown is excessive and problematic, introducing an incongruous element within the conservation area which cannot be supported by officers. This slide shows the north elevations of building 3 and building 2, which would result in future occupiers overlooking private amenity space for future occupants. This slide shows the front elevation of building 3 at the top and the side elevation of building 2 to the bottom. Again, this elevation shows the rear elevation to building 2. In terms of the site plan, as already highlighted, the overall elevational design is not acceptable in terms of fenestration changes and the excessive use of louvers and shutters. The layout would result in no defensible space around the ground floor windows, creating a poor internal environment for future occupiers, and due to the constrained nature of the site, awkward spaces between the buildings. The proposed development would result in a poor relationship with the existing properties due to the need for the openings required to facilitate the residential conversion. And the following slides show the artist's impression to the east, north and south, and then I'll go on to the photos. So this is to the east, to the north, to the south. And then in terms of the photos, this is the view from Bradford Street, the vehicle entrance to the site. To the left-hand side is building 1, and the other picture is showing that glazed foyer to be removed and the link between the 2 buildings, so they would become separated. This would be building 2, building 3. This is the existing site looking to the north, northeast and northwest. Obviously, you can see the relationship with the adjacent properties. Again, similar to the southeast, south and southwest in terms of the relationship with the residents. And this is to the southeast of the site. To summarise, the application is for full planning permission for partial demolition and change of use from offices to residential, consisting of 12 residential units with associated car parking, amenity space, cycle storage and refuse. The benefits would include a sustainable location being situated within the settlement boundary. The site comprises of previously developed land and would also involve reuse and conversion of existing buildings. It would deliver 12 market dwellings and economic benefits during the construction and thereafter. However, the adverse impacts of the proposal include the proposal where its design and layout would fail to provide a high quality environment or a good standard of amenity for future occupiers and neighbouring properties. The proposed layout is car dominated with little landscaping proposed to enhance the quality or sense of place, and the layout would result in flats having poor or enclosed outlook. The positioning of the windows would lead to overlooking between flats, and the layout fails to provide a satisfactory outdoor amenity space. The recommendation is therefore for refusal for the reasons set out on pages 33 and 35 of the agenda.
Thank you, Janine. I'll pass over to members now. Who'd like to go first on this application? Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The glass extension that is to be demolished, can I ask whether that was consented by this authority in the past, please?
Yes, I believe it was consented, but it was quite a while ago. So,
Councillor Schwer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I just ask a technical question? We've heard quite a lot of comments from officers already with regards to fenestration and overlooking. And we've heard from the floor the representative of the application for the planning application tonight. Could I just ask technically, in a situation like this, surely in order to avoid those in a situation like this where the buildings are fairly tight and the overlooking concern, is there not use of films and window treatments that could avoid that, so that there is no opportunity of people looking into other properties? Because we are sort of 2024 and no longer 1990, and I thought it's been mentioned by both that our officers and the applicant that it's a high standard, and I would have thought this would have been already thought of in the application. So I'd just like a technical answer. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Schwer. So I think the starting point is obviously where you would look to obscure glaze windows. It would be for non-habitable rooms, and it would be in a situation where you'd be doing an ensuite or a bathroom or something like that to prevent a potential overlooking issue. I think the issue with this, given the proximity and the tight nature of it, is in order to address some of the issues, you'd actually be obscure glazing some habitable rooms, and ordinarily you wouldn't expect that from normal habitable living accommodation. So the starting point would be that you would expect an outlook from those windows which is not obscured. So that would be our position on that. So you're right in from a technical perspective that could be done, but the issue then comes back to, certainly from officers' perspective and the way we've assessed the application, is does that provide a satisfactory level of amenity for future occupiers? I suppose is the question that I would pose back. So it's technically possible.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just come back very quickly on, you mentioned it's a poor internal layout as well for the majority of those properties there then, but that does conform to the Essex Design Guide even with the poor internal layout, but it's not ideal is what you're saying.
yeah, in terms of the internal floor spaces of the flats, they do comply with national prescribed standards. In terms of the amenity space, whilst the applicant has suggested that it complies with policy, we don't think it's really achievable given the fact that it's overlooked by future occupants.
I'm sorry, my other question is, with regards to the landscaping, I'm actually surprised that there's no landscaping on site, because it does seem I mean, there appears to be no scheme there, and it wasn't mentioned about having biodiversity and net gain off-site to offset that from this conservation area. So I just wondered what was happening about that.
Yeah, in terms of when this application was received, it was actually prior to the deadline. So there is a kind of like a grace period that applications that came in prior to the 2nd of April don't have to meet that requirement, unfortunately.
Mr. Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For me, the design of the buildings is not ideal, but I think it's the layout which I think is the weaker part of the equation, where you would have people looking out onto essentially large areas of car parking with no landscaping, and the car parking actually has almost become the central feature of the development. So I think for me that's the standout issue, but I've got a question as well. I'm not quite sure what you call it, that sort of mill-like feature that's stuck out at the top. what would be the function of that? Would it just be decorative, or would it actually be part of the development? And if it is that intended to be like a Juliet balcony there, or what is it? Thank you.
If I just go back to the photos, do you mean building 2, is it?
Yes, that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
that one. Just let me just go back to the floor plan, sorry. If you can just bear with me, I'll just get the floor plan up again. Sorry, yeah, there would be no living accommodation at that floor. So it would obviously just be for the stairwell.
Janine, I think, sorry if I might just butt in here, but I think your major concerns seem to be the living conditions for future occupiers and also overlooking on neighbours. Would you be able to just run through the plans with us? I think we've been sent the presentation before, and I've got it on my screen, and I can actually just enlarge it. It makes it easier, but it's quite difficult when we've got 3 different buildings, and I think there are 4 flats, 2 ground floor, 2 first floor in each building. So it's just quite a little bit difficult for us to actually follow exactly where the problems are that you, as far as you consider that, particularly with the daylight and the looking. It'd be helpful for members, hopefully.
Sorry, I'll just stand up because I don't think the point is... Can you hear me now? Is that better? Sorry. So, okay, let me just put my pen down, sorry. So, this is building 1, building 2 and building 3. So, in terms of the main issues, sorry, just to remember, the main issues are, so for example, this unit here would butt onto a high-level boundary wall, which is not considered acceptable for outlook. And then obviously the open plan living area would have little defensible space to the road. In respect of the elevations to the building 2, which face north, which is here. Don't know if you can see it. Can everyone see that? Yeah. There's limited separation distance between 2 of the buildings, so that would really impact on the outlook of the bedroom for future occupiers, and again, the open plan living. Again, in this location here, and the one here at building 2, the amenity space would be overlooked by occupants. And back to the councillor's question about, you know, obscure screens and things, obviously they would be their habitable rooms, so you wouldn't be able to really restrict the obscurity, because obviously they need to have that outlook, but they would overlook the communal amenity spaces. And then the flats in building 3, they just have little defensible space really against obviously the main habitable rooms, the bedrooms, the open plan living spaces. Does that address? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Unless Councillor's got any other questions. Councillor Wright.
On the
Speak into the microphone.
building, these here, are these other houses or flats?
Yeah, to confirm, they are other buildings, so they're dwellings. They have like high level windows here and roof lights.
Councillor Spray.
Thank you, Chairman. So there are obviously some differences between the previous application, which was refused, and this one, but I don't think it's quite true to say that all the reasons have been, you know, fully addressed with this application, because we clearly still have some concerns from officers about the design and the layout, and the amenity space. But can I just check, Janine, we have 3 other reasons for refusal. So reason 3 is insufficient information on flood risk. Reason 4 is a lack of mitigation with regards to RAMs, and reason 5 is the lack of a Section 106 agreement. Are those 3 reasons still valid? And apologies if I missed you saying that. Are they still existing?
Apologies, yes, they are.
They are?
Yeah.
Right, okay, thank you. So notwithstanding the concerns that we may have about design, layout and amenity space, we still have another 3 reasons which carry quite a lot of weight overall. So I think that makes it quite hard to look more favourably on this application than we did on the last one. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Bowes-Flint.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is actually in my ward stroke division. And I can categorically say that every time it pours with rain, I have constant complaints from all the residents down there on the flooding. And the situation isn't getting any better at all. And there is a problem with the drainage down there as well. And I have quite often had to get emergencies out so that people's homes are not flooded. So there is at least a flooding problem there. I think if we look at the layout and what people's outlook are, and I know that you don't buy a view with a property, but we're not given a lot if we give this permission. We're not giving them much at all to look out to. In fact, we're not giving them anything. In fact, in some places, we've just given them a brick wall, which to me is not satisfactory for anybody to live in that kind of situation. And the landscaping, well, that would be one of the most important things on this site now, if it was to be approved. And I don't think that's good enough neither. I mean, to be honest with you, whilst it might be better than the previous applications, and I've sat here and seen the previous applications, there's so much more that needs to be addressed on this application than what's in front of us tonight. And so I can't support it, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Schwer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Based on the comments that I think colleagues around the table have made tonight, and the fact that Councillor Spain mentioned about the flood risk, the mitigation of RAMs and the Section 106, and we've just heard from Councillor Bowes-Flint with regards to knowing the property and the area extremely well. And I think also other comments, the fact that the lack of landscaping, the outlook and everything else, although considerable improvement was made on the previous one, I'm quite content to move officer's recommendation on this.
And just before, if does any other member wanted to make any other comment before on the application? In that case, would anybody like to second that motion? I think Councillor Bowes-Flint, sorry, I've got your hand up just before Councillor Abbott. So it's been moved by Councillor Schwer and seconded by Councillor Bowes-Flint that we refuse this application. All those in favour of refusal? That is unanimous. Thank you, members. That application has been refused. We'll now wait for Councillor Fink and Councillor Monday to leave the room. Move on to the second application this evening, which is application number 24/017014 full at the Courtauld Sports Ground, Colchester Road, Halstead. And we don't have any speakers on that application, but Chris, are you doing this, or is Janine? Janine's going to do a presentation on this one.
Thank you. Planning permission is sought to erect a 5 metre high bull stop fencing at Courtauld Sports Ground, Colchester Road, Helsted. The proposed fence would provide a bull stop fence to support the existing use of the sports ground and specifically the football pitch, which is located to the north of the field. The proposed fencing would be positioned behind the western goal line, which is within the proximity of the Colnview care home, and would reduce the loss of footballs over the fence. The proposal would not impact on the erosion of any recreation function and would not impact on any existing right-of-way through the site. The position of the fence has been established in order to allow for the retention and continued maintenance of the trees and hedgerows, as shown on the plan, set 0.5 metres away from the front of the hedge. This slide shows the inclusion of the fence to the bottom drawing. The fencing would command a length of 42 metres spanning the goal line of the football pitch. This length is required in order to serve its purpose to prevent stray balls. The length includes supporting posts positioned at 3 metre intervals, measuring 60.3 millimetres in diameter. The infill forms a black polyester mesh fabric supported by black wires at 1 metre intervals, and the proposed fabric would allow for a degree of visual permeability. The position of the fence, together with the materials and its form, would not harm the visual amenity of the area as an open playing field. The development would not be overbearing or visually intrusive addition, and the fencing would be set within the tree canopy and would be visually obscured from the neighbouring care home. Given the nature of the fencing, together with the surrounding tree canopy, there would be no overshadowing or loss of light resulting from this proposal. Furthermore, the proposal would not result in the loss of any priority habitat. This is a sectional drawing of the mesh fabric and the posts in between. This is a slide of fencing provided by the applicant taken from the manufacturer's website. Again, this is an image similar to what's already installed around the Bowls Club. I don't know if you can see that, yeah. This is an image taken from the pitch towards the residence in Dame Mary Walk. Another image taken from the pitch towards residents on Dame Mary Walk and Colnview Care Home. The image of the goal line in front of where the fencing would be positioned. A further image of the goal line in front of where the fencing would be positioned. To summarise, the development is acceptable in principle. The impact of the development on the character and appearance of the area is acceptable. The type of fencing would not appear unsightly or unduly overbearing and would be consistent with the existing sports use of the field. The impact upon neighbouring residential amenities is acceptable due to the proposed fencing material, allowing visual porosity, and members are therefore recommended to grant planning permission subject to conditions.
Thank you, Janine. I think it was useful to see that photograph of the Bowls Club, actually, because it's very hard to see the fencing against that. Members, does anybody want to have any? Has anybody got any comment on this application? Fairly straight. Councillor Abbott, and then.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As I was a little bit concerned about the juxtaposition with the trees, but now I've seen the photograph. I'll admit I don't know the site that well. I can see the trees are behind the hedge, so I don't think there'd be any interference between the two. And reading the officer report, what I was looking for was, were there any local objections? Because it is a substantial structure, but there aren't. I think the officer report said there were no objections. Had there been, I think we might have been looking at a different picture, but I think people want it there, and then it would deal with the issue, obviously, which is trying to stop, which is the balls going through. So, yes, I'm content to support this. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Basflint?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I think it's a common sense approach, really, isn't a no-brainer, because it must be extremely annoying if the balls are going over there, especially to the elderly person's home, because, you know, God forbid that one goes over there, hits them on the head, it could kill them or knock them over and they could be seriously damaged if we want to look at it that way. So I think it's a no-brainer, and I think enough space has been left to look after those trees, because there's some old trees around that site as well. So I think it's a total no-brainer, and we should be supporting it, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to make a comment? In which case, would you like to? Councillor Holland?
Yeah, I'd like to move officer recommendation.
Okay, thank you. And second for Councillor Basfint. So it's been moved by Councillor Holland, seconded by Councillor Basfint that we grant this application. All in favour of granting the application? Is that everybody? Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay, members, that has been granted. And that brings us to the end of our meeting this evening. I'm sure the next one won't be as short as this one.